In this video, we are going to review what has been learned from Unit 4, Lessons 10 through 12. To complete this review, you will need your iControl student workbook and something to write with. If you do not have what you need at this time, please pause the video and press play when you're ready to continue. If you do not need to view all of the lessons in this video, feel free to skip to the lessons you need to view using the start times provided. You have learned how to use the steps C and TRL to solve a problem. You can C, check for a problem, N, name the problem, T, think of solutions, and R, respond. Remember that respond with a plan means you evaluate solutions, choose the best solution, and act with a plan. When you R, respond with a plan that involves other people, an important step is using good communication skills. Let's look at an example that shows why communication is so important. Ebony and her mom are going to her grandma's birthday party. Ebony's mom tells her to change her clothes. Ebony goes to her room, gets her markers out, and decorates her skirt. When she comes out, her mom says, "I told you to change." Ebony replies, "I did. You said to change my clothes, and they're definitely changed." Although this is a silly example, it shows that we can easily misunderstand people if we don't communicate clearly. Let's look at some good communication skills. There are two parts to communication, talking and listening. We use talking to inform others about how we feel, what we want, and what we are thinking. If we do not tell them, they don't know. The same is true for listening. If we don't listen to others, we won't know how they feel, what they want, or what they think. Talking skills occur both before and during communication with others. We use pre-communication talking skills to prepare ourselves to talk with others by considering body language, emotions, and goals. Here are some examples. The way you communicate with others depends on who they are, so know who you're communicating with. For example, you use a different tone of voice, body language, and word choice when talking to the principal versus talking to your friend. Use the emotion control steps before you begin talking to make sure you calm down if you are upset. Remember your goal so you can stay focused on it during your conversation. We use other skills when we are actually in the process of talking with someone. Here are some examples of during communication talking skills. Be aware of your body language and keep eye contact with the other person, which will let them know the conversation is important to you. Choose your words wisely because someone is more likely to listen if you're speaking respectfully. Express your emotions by using the word I. Using I lets you explain how you feel without blaming the other person. For example, rather than saying, "You were so mean, you made me mad and hurt my feelings when you didn't let me sit with you at lunch," you would use I to express how you feel. "I feel hurt that you didn't let me sit with you at lunch because we talked about it on the way to class this morning." By using I, you're explaining your emotions without blaming the other person. The second part of communicating is listening. When others know that you're really listening, they're more likely to listen to what you have to say. Just like talking, you need to be aware of your body language, emotions, and goals. A good listener is an active listener who does their best to understand what the other person is saying by paying attention. You might reword things that the other person is saying to make sure you really understand what that person means. Active listeners also let the other person talk without interrupting them. For example, to show your friend who just told you she got in an argument with Jamie and thinks she's selfish, you could say, "Wow, so you and Jamie got in an argument? I can see you're really upset. What happened?" Now it's time to practice your communication skills using a communication checklist. Pause the video while you read the role play on Handout 10.1 in your student workbook and fill out the checklist on Handout 10.2. When you're done, press play. Let's turn to the content questions for Unit 4, Lesson 10 in your iControl student workbook to check your understanding of this lesson. Pause the video while you answer the questions. When you're done, press play. For question 1, if you selected D, you're correct. Communication is when we exchange information by talking and listening to other people. For question 2, if you selected C, you're correct. The two parts of communication are talking and listening. Now that you have learned how to communicate through talking and listening as part of R, respond with a plan, in Lesson 11, you will learn the last step in C and TRL. L, look at how you did to determine if it worked and if you reached your goal. For example, LeBron is on the track team and is preparing for their next meet. He wants to win the 100-yard dash, so he's practicing sprinting. He practices all week, but doesn't time himself. He realizes he doesn't know if he's improving his time. LeBron needs to time his running so that he can look back to know how well he's improving. If he did not stop to look back at how he did, he would not have realized he had no idea how much he had improved. Now that we know why it's important to L, look at how you did, let's look at some tips to help you complete this step. Just because we think we've chosen the best solution doesn't mean it'll actually work the way we expected, just like you saw in the example with LeBron. There are 3 questions you need to ask yourself so you can figure out how you really did. 1. What happened? 2. How well did the plan work? And 3. What next? After you have followed through with your plan, ask yourself what happened by looking at the details of what happened, how other people responded, and how you felt. Once you've answered what happened, you can ask yourself how well did the plan work by determining if you solved your problem and reached your goal. There are several things that can help you. Your emotions can be a clue that the plan did or didn't work out well. For example, if you're still feeling upset, that's a clue you still have a problem. If the problem involves other people, you could look at their reactions to see if the plan worked. For example, if your friend still looks upset, that's a clear sign the plan did not work. It is also important to see how a plan worked so you can learn from your mistakes and successes. The final step is to ask what next. If you solved your problem and reached your goal, then you're done. If you didn't solve your problem and reach your goal, then you might have to take some different steps. For example, if you chose the wrong solution, you may have to choose a different one or come up with new ones. If you choose the right solution but didn't carry it out well, you might have to modify your plan and try again. If you named the problem incorrectly, you may have to start back at the end, name the problem, and goal step of CNTRL. For example, Brad skipped Zion in line at lunch. Zion goes through the CNTRL process and comes up with a plan. He decides to push Brad. They get into a fight and both boys are suspended. The next week, Brad skips Zion again, but since he already went through the CNTRL steps, he knows he has to come up with a different plan. His new plan is to take some deep breaths to calm down and explain to Brad that it makes him angry when he skips him. This time, Brad backs off and goes back to his spot in line. Now it's your turn to practice step L, look at how you did. Pause the video while you read the role play on handout 11.3 and answer the questions on handout 11.4 in your student workbook. When you're done, press play. Let's turn to the content questions for Unit 4, Lesson 11 in your iControl student workbook to check your understanding of this lesson. Pause the video while you answer the questions. When you're done, press play. For question 1, if you selected A, you're correct. When you're trying to figure out if your plan went well, you see if your problem was solved and you reached your goal. For question 2, if you selected C, you're correct. When you are thinking about what's next, you decide whether or not you are done with the CNTRL steps. For Lesson 12, the final lesson of iControl, you review the CNTRL steps. To solve a problem, you C, check for a problem. N, name the problem and the goal. T, think of solutions. R, respond with a plan. And L, look at how you did. A big part of being able to respond with a plan is to communicate and exchange information by talking and listening. We need to speak so people will understand what we are thinking and feeling, and we need to listen to others so we know what they are thinking and feeling. Some skills are used before communication while others are used during communication. So, remember that before communicating, you need to know who you're communicating with, make sure you're calm, and remember your goal. When you're actually talking with someone, there are other skills you can use. Be aware of your body language and make eye contact with the other person. Choose your words wisely and express your emotions using the word I. When listening, remember to be aware of your body language, stay calm, and be an active listener. Remember, it is important to pay attention to how you communicate when you respond with a plan, because it can be helpful in solving your problems. In the final CNTRL step, UL, look at how you did to figure out if you solved the problem and reached your goal. Remember to ask yourself what happened, how well did it go, and what next. Once you've asked yourself these questions, you can figure out if you actually solved your problem. If you have, then you're done. But if you haven't, you have more work to do. Now it is time to practice problem solving using the CNTRL steps. Pause the video while you read the role play on handout 12.1 in your student workbook and answer the questions on handout 12.2. When you're done, press play. Let's turn to the content questions for Unit 4, Lesson 12 in your iControl student workbook to check your understanding of this lesson. Pause the video while you answer the questions. When you're done, press play. For question 1, if you selected C, you're correct. If Shantae uses good communication skills, she will calm down and use the word I to express how she feels. For question 2, if you selected A, you're correct. Now that BJ has acted out his plan, he should look back at how his plan worked. Thank you for taking the time to catch up with iControl today. Now that you've learned all the iControl problem-solving steps, you're ready to become expert problem solvers. Remember to keep practicing the skills you've learned in iControl. Use your brain skills to help you control your thoughts, emotions, and actions. They will help you better get along with others, pursue your goals, and be more successful in life.